This is Brian Meador from East Carolina University. You are listening to the Sports Objective, the official, unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective. Very special show tonight as we're debuting a very special event. We're going to do a series about the Peach Bowl. We'll talk about that. And one of my favorite coaches for East Carolina. We'll talk to him in just a second. Bubba Rosenbaum, how are you?
Doing well, Dave. I think I'm finally getting past that South Carolina loss, as tough as it was on Saturday. Hopefully the Pirates will be able to bounce back up at Marshall.
No doubt about it. The great thing about these about the football season is you lose a tough game, but then it's really fast and you don't have time to really think about the South Carolina loss. And somebody, Bubba, that would know about that is our next guest, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm very excited to have this guy back on the program. Coach Connors, how are you?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate the invite. And, we'll kick it around a little bit.
No doubt, Coach. You were with us back when we had our nostalgia party, our first big live event, July of 18th. And unfortunately, we lost Professor Cools because of the pandemic. But you came out that night. You've always been very good to us. And I know you're a great Pirate. We wanted to have you on because, Bubba, tell everybody the name of our great series we're starting about the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, we'll be talking to various coaches, players, and so forth connected to that 1991 season when the Pirates finished 11-1, ranked 9th in the country. And we're calling the series a peach of a season 30 years later.
Sounds great.
Hard to believe. And Coach, you, I tell you what, I tell people all the time, if you want to, I hear this is one of the things I want to say. We'll talk about the Peach Bowl, but of all the former players that talk about Coach C, one of the things that they've told me about the ones that have made it to the big dance, they've made it to the NFL. As they said, Coach Connors used to work us out. And so we get to the NFL and we're like, wow, that training for the NFL, that's all? They're like, it was that easy. They said, Coach would like run us and run us and run us and run us. And they said that how well that you prepared them. Numerous ones, Bubba can tell you over and over again, when they mention Coach Connors and the conditioning, they always talk about when they made it to the next level, they thought it was going to be worse than Coach Connors, not easier than Coach Connors.
Well, I'm flattered by that, and I appreciate that. Actually, I take that as a compliment. And the league is much different than the collegiate level, and you've got a lot of individuals with a lot of individual needs and different ages and different I guess you could say places in their careers, and you really need to individualize their training based upon that, and also the position that they play and all those different things. And, the more you can individualize, the better it is. And, I never really had the desire to pamper millionaires. Maybe they're billionaires now. I don't even know. But I had a couple opportunities maybe to move to that level. But I'm very happy with the career that I had at the collegiate level.
Let's talk about, Coach. How did you get to East Carolina? And obviously under Bill Lewis, but you came in, was it 1990 when you came into East Carolina? Is my memory right on that?
I was 1991. I moved from being I mentioned to you that I was a cop for a while in South Florida, but I was also a high school teacher, and I was an offensive coordinator at a high school and also the head wrestling coach. And through my wrestling program, I somehow ended up at Bucknell, and then they wanted me to initiate a strength and conditioning program because of my experience in powerlifting and also the fact that I played football in college. And so I went ahead and started to, initiate the first strength and conditioning program at Bucknell. I became curious about what the Philadelphia Eagles were doing because I heard they were doing some interesting things with speed, which is something that really interested me my whole career. And so I went down and met Ronnie Jones with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he brought in Kevin McNair from out in California to the Eagles camp. And I met Kevin, and I basically became familiar with his his program, and I really think that he was the godfather of speed for football, because he was a track guy, but he really adapted everything to football, and that's kind of where speed development got started. And Ronnie Jones happened to be a good friend with Steve Logan. And so one day I just got a call from Ronnie, and he said, hey, I was down at East Carolina University with my friend Steve Logan, and they're going to be making a change in their strength program. Previous to this, Ronnie Buddy Ryan was going to move him to linebacker coach, and actually Ronnie was going to have me come in and interview for the strength job. And then I got excited and called him like the next week, and they all got fired. So that was it for my opportunity with Buddy Ryan. But anyway, I ended up speaking with Steve Logan, I think. Bill Lewis called me. I had no idea who Bill Lewis was. I honestly didn't know where East Carolina was. I wasn't that familiar with it. And Bill Lewis said, would you be interested in coming to East Carolina? I was in the process of also getting my high school principal certificate because I always loved education. I thought maybe I'd like to go into school administration. And I said, yes, sir, I'd be interested in interviewing. And then I never even heard from him for about 3 or 4 weeks because I think Dave Huxtable was trying to bring a guy in who was his friend. That guy ended up not having a master's degree. I was finishing my master's degree at Bucknell. And so about a month later, Lewis called me and said, hey, I just want you to know that I think you're the guy for this job, and I want you to get down here and interview. So that kind of shocked me since I didn't know him that well. So anyway, I flew in. I think I was speaking in St. Louis at the National Conference for Strength. Flew in from there to East Carolina. Henry Van Sant met me there.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a guy that I really had tremendous respect for. And Henry sat me down and told me, hey, the guy we have is, whatever reason, he's going to be leaving. And we need a tough guy in here. We need a guy that wants to instill discipline and hard work. And that's what this program's all about. And he coached with Clarence Stasovich and told me those stories and the history of ECU. And, Henry was just getting me really fired up for the job. I mean, I didn't know anybody at ECU, but I was getting really excited about it. And Henry said to me, he said, something, we're just stewards of the university. This place is going to be here a lot longer than we are, but, we got to keep this tradition. And so that whole conversation with Henry just got me really excited about the possibility. And then I had a brief meeting with Bill Lewis, and that was about it. And and I was offered the job. And so I came in, I think it was in, I don't know, it was either May or June, and we got rolling with the team. I was the only coach. I didn't have any assistants until late in the summer. I hired Tom Howley, but I basically had the whole team myself. And I just wanted to come in there and kind of attack and be demanding and make sure that we had anybody got out of line. I wanted to make sure I confronted them right away. And I could tell you a few stories there, but that was my whole deal. Is I was going to basically do what Henry wanted me to do, and that was kind of right up my alley because that's something I always believed in. And I got a few other things that I can elaborate on with regard to that.
Coach, discuss doing your homework on Bill Lewis. He came from Georgia. His background was on the defensive side of the ball. He was very key in a lot of that success the Bulldogs had in the 1980s under Vince Dooley. So if you would just talk about doing your homework on Coach Lewis and then building a relationship with him, because I know he was someone that was a huge believer in just instilling that discipline necessary to have the success that team had.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to do any homework on Bill Lewis. I mean, Steve Logan told me, he said, hey, I'm bringing you in here. And Bill Lewis is going to be very successful this year. We're going to have a good team. We don't see him being around maybe very long. And, I was very naive. I didn't even think about, I might not even have a job after this year, but when I spoke to Bill Lewis, I was just very impressed with him. And he just seemed to be a really class act, very professional, very organized. Even the way the guy dressed, his shoes were always shined. He just looked perfect all the time. And So, I was just privileged to come in and have the opportunity to work for somebody like Bill Lewis and be on a staff like we had, because we had so many guys from that staff that have been extremely successful in coaching. And so, I was just happy to be here, but I wasn't really worried about, getting to know the coaches or getting to know the administrators. I just wanted to go in and hit the ground running with the players. I mean, that's really kind of where my focus was, is that I just wanted to get that thing rolling. And, I wanted to start my conditioning program, and I've always believed very strongly in speed development. And I wanted to get that whole thing rolling as soon as I possibly could. And so I got there every day at 5 a.m. I want to make sure I was the first one there and the last one to leave. I vacuumed and swept and sometimes mopped the place myself late at night. But nobody was going to get there earlier than me. I was there in my little 40 XP, and the players laughed at me. Like, where'd you get that car? And, everybody else has a dealer car, and, you got this 40 XP. Like, hey, man, I didn't care, man. I just wanted to coach. So, we had a good time. I was, like Robert Jones and Mark Washington and, all those guys I met, initially, Ernie Lewis and J-Dog and all those guys. I mean, they were great guys. They wanted to get to work, and they knew they could have a pretty good football team. And so I don't think they knew that I was going to run them the way that I did. I don't think Deion Johnson knew that I was going to come to his room and drag him out of there because he didn't show up one day. But that's kind of where it started with me as far as 1991.
Coach, I had a question as far as speaking of strength and conditioning for the Peach Bowl team. Can you give us, I don't expect numbers, but who was the strongest man on that team, on the 91 Peach Bowl team, in your estimation?
Well, if you look at overall strength, it was Robert Jones. I mean, Robert was pound for pound very strong. He's a big man. He was strong in every lift. He could also run. He probably could have used a little bit more mobility. That's something I should have worked probably more with him on. But Robert was just, he was a man. I mean, you knew he was gonna go high in the draft, and that he was very gifted physically, big, strong, fast guy, and he was really amazing because, again, I came in from Bucknell. I mean, so we didn't have any Robert Joneses at Bucknell.
Right.
So, so yeah.
Or are there some that maybe would surprise the viewers and listeners that were very strong, and we, with a naked eye, we wouldn't know it?
Well, David Daniels bench pressed over 500 pounds. I mean,
wow.
And usually if somebody got in a fight on the field, I was used to diving in there and, maybe put somebody to chicken wing half, the wrestling whole guy. David jumped on some guy one day, and they were fighting. I jumped on. I couldn't even move the guy. I'm like, who is this? And so David Daniels was extremely strong. He benched over 500, and there was a whole group of guys that loved to lift. And two of the guys that I was very impressed with, Greg Gardill and Zyme Kumalai. The nose guard and the three technique. These guys weighed 238, 240. That's all they weighed the whole year.
Yeah.
And, you didn't push those guys around. I mean, they were amazing pound for pound in what they did on the defensive front.
Coach, give us a glimpse behind the scenes as much as you can share. I know a lot of that stuff will stay there in those facilities where the workouts happen. But, just tell us what it was like, those winter workouts, and changing, or continuing to establish the culture that Coach Lewis was implementing those first two seasons.
Right. I was with Lewis one season.
Right. But
so I'll mention a few things here. Bill gave me the freedom to set the standard for conditioning, and Steve Logan did the same thing. Those were the only two coaches I ever worked for that really allowed me to set the standard for conditioning and just gave it to me. Like, hey, what are we doing today? What are we doing this week? What are we doing this month? Whatever you say we're doing, that's what we're doing. And every assistant coach has got to be on board. And so I really appreciated that, because I was pretty extreme in relationship to what I believed as far as what you needed to do to be in great shape for the game of football. Also, I've always been really big on discipline. So I had the freedom to enforce in discipline, and I took it on myself to do that. I didn't really go ask or tell Bill, hey, this guy did this today. This guy, I just did it myself, and so we would go to the dorm and get somebody, or we would meet them at 4:00 in the morning, or we would, be out there rolling in the mud or doing up downs or whatever. I mean, and I was not going to let anything get by me with regard to discipline. So, and I really kind of, I'm from West Virginia, Pennsylvania area. Both my grandfathers were coal miners. They spent a total of 100 years in the coal mine. Between them, one was 45 years, one 55 years. They both started 12 years old. So the work ethic and those types of things, I always related to Nick Saban and all the things that he talked about. And, and I kind of wrote down a quote here for, if you think you're helping your organization by not confronting people who are not doing the right thing, you are wrong. And I mean, that's something that I believed in up until the time that I left East Carolina, and I never wanted to compromise. And I think this is one of the reasons that Nick Saban has been so successful, but he also has the power to do whatever he wants to do where this is concerned, because he has been so successful. If you're not successful and the ship starts going down, you don't have much power sometimes, and you're afraid of losing guys. So you're a little reluctant to do these things. The other thing he said was, you lose respect from all the people who see it happen, and you do nothing about it. So if my assistant coaches see me not doing anything about it, or if the other players know that it's wrong and I'm not doing anything about it, then I'm in deep trouble. So I've always believed that I have to confront something immediately, no matter what it is. If somebody is 30 seconds late in coming into the weight room, it's got to be confronted. And things can get real tough there if you don't have a head coach that's going to back you up on that, especially if you don't want to compromise your own principles as a strength and conditioning coach. So, Saban calls these guys energy vampires. And, and that's a pretty good name, because, if you're not doing the right thing, you're sapping the energy away from the whole rest of the team. And, and every team kind of has a few of these guys. I think it's hard to have a football team without having some. And so, like I say, it's got to be the same for everybody. I've always believed that, the same for everybody. Doesn't matter who it is. So if your best athlete is 5 minutes late, he got to pay the price. Just like if a walk-on's 5 minutes late. And so, those things have been extremely important to me, and I really appreciated both, Bill Lewis and Steve Logan kind of turning conditioning over to me. Now, when we talk about conditioning, I just had a very specific formula. On Sundays, I like to run 300s around the field in season. We'd start out with about 4 to 6 300s, but the times were not real fast. But we were trying to actually purposely initiate moderate lactate levels, and moderate lactate levels facilitate restoration and also promote growth hormone. A lot of people don't know that. People will tell you, well, let's get the lactate out. The lactate's been out a long time. What you're talking about is micro tears in the muscle fiber, and you want to get circulation. And once you get circulation, these guys feel better. And so after 4 to 6 300s, even though that sounds like a lot, we'd go right to practice. And these guys were more ready for practice because the soreness from the game then was addressed. And of course, some guys were still nicked up. And then from there, we'd go lift weights after practice, and then we'd go to the pool. So, that was our Sunday deal. And then on Tuesday, we always ran 4 full gassers at the end of practice. Everybody knew what was coming. Yes, you were fatigued. You just went through a tough practice. You were in full gear with your helmet snapped up. And if you didn't make your time, Logan was not happy with that position coach. And, I was not happy with the player. And so they had to stay after and do more work. So you had to make your time. You had to have that chin strap buckled. And, that was part of the deal also. And then on Wednesday, we did half of that. And that was pretty much a formula in season. In the summer, you'll hear these guys talk about 300s.
Yeah.
We ran 300s once a week. and that was on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, I didn't even know where this was going. I played defensive back in college. So I'd run with a post. I had to get lined back up. I might run with an out and up. I had to get lined back up. Me and the strong safety might change responsibilities. I had to contain, outside contain, take on 2 blockers and keep outside contained. I mean, these plays, you go 16 play drive, one after the other, and you tell me you're not going to get into the glycolytic energy system. I don't believe that. So when I see guys all bent over out there, they're going to 16 play drive now, and they don't even have time. There's no huddle. If you're all bent over like that, you're not clearing lactate. So the thing is, at some point in your training, you need to address the anaerobic threshold, and you need to basically get into that energy system. And that's why we did the running on Tuesday. Now, from there, the players said, Coach, this is getting easy. After we were running 4 of them, then maybe 6 of them. And I was like, well, okay, we'll go to 30-second, rest. So we go to 30-second rest. Well, Coach, it's pretty hard, but, we can do more. When it got to 8 for the skill guys, and this was kind of now this became a crossing over in the summer. When you crossed over, I gave you a gold shirt, and now you became a coach, and you didn't have to run them anymore. You coached the other guys. When Kevin Monroe came in and made 8 the first day as a freshman, the guys came to me, the seniors, they said, this can't happen. We need to run 10. I'm like, I don't even know if it's physically possible for a human being to run 10 300s in 55 seconds with 30 seconds rest. But like all the skill guys, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 and a few summers, everybody made them by the end of the summer. But really, that wasn't me. That was the leadership. And I was worried. I thought, I was worried somebody might go down. But still, we didn't have that until the end of the summer, where we already ran for 2-3 months. But that's something we only did 1 day a week. So, some of those guys would be in the locker room on Tuesday, man, just sitting there shaking their head. Ronnie Sudduth and Jamie Gray, they'd be in there. They'd come in there about 2 hours before we had to run and just go in there and meditate. And so, it just became a special thing. Whatever it is, 300s, or it might be something else in your program, but it was a crossing over. You knew when the fourth quarter came, there was absolutely no way that anybody in the country ran more than you ran or was in better shape than you were in. And we were looking for guys to bend over. We were looking for guys to go off the field. It was a secret. We didn't have raise the flag. We didn't have, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't have liked that, because I wanted to sneak up on somebody. I didn't want to have a video and raise the flag and try to wake people up. Hey, wait, we're in the fourth quarter now. We're about to kick your tail. We were whispering on the sideline, hey, we're tasting blood now. Let's go get it. I mean, and that was the whole deal then. So that's kind of how it evolved.
Coach, we've heard numerous players from your era talk about those 300s. So definitely, if you get a chance, go back and look at the archives of our show. And there's many of your former players that talk. That's one of the things that they talked about.
Yeah, that and then the number of up downs they do.
Well, yeah. I'll tell you this, if I wish I had, and I do have a video somewhere, I got to find it. I got a video of David Garrard making 10 300s, but I don't know where it's at. So I got a lot of videos that I got to dig through. But if you saw these guys with the gold shirts at the end of the summer running with the only 8 or 10 guys left that last week and coaching them and encouraging them and getting them off the ground and letting them know the deal as far as what the standard was, I mean, it was really something to see. And it was special. And, you just don't have things happen like that. I still think that was one of the most special things, of course, that I've ever experienced as a coach. And like I say, it wasn't me. I turned it over to them. And, I was just kind of a lot of times there shaking my head. But they got it done, and I think that it made an impact.
Coach, let's talk about the 91. Can we talk about the preseason, the fall camp, if you will? Is there anything special as a coach? Did you see anything? I know you were brand new to the program at the time, but Did you have any kind of feeling like this team? I know they're supposed to be good, but could you tell in that preseason and the fall camp that this is going to be a really good team?
Yeah, there was a tremendous amount of energy on that team. I mean, from the first day I stepped in the door, I just noticed the enthusiasm, and of course there was talent. Maybe not as much talent as some of the other teams we played, but you had commitment, you had talent, you had enthusiasm. Of course, I thought we were in great shape. We did a good job with that, I thought. And I thought Bill Lewis was a tremendous motivator. His Friday night talks, I mean, you could hear a pin drop, and he'd put some record on, some Whitney Houston record, or he'd always come up with something.
Kenny Rogers, I heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, so it was like, and I never, I don't know. Like I said, I was pretty naive. I'd go to a coaches meeting and nobody was saying a word. It was just Bill, and he'd be asking a question. Nobody's saying much, but everybody said, well, Bill's going to be leaving and these guys want to go with him. And, I wasn't thinking about that. I mean, I was just, trying to get my job done. But I had a tremendous amount of respect for Bill that year, because I just thought he did a great job motivating our guys. And I thought practices were brutal. We're in pads a lot. We were live with the scout team, 1 or 2 days a week to the ground. And the practices were long. The practices in camp were long, and then we'd condition. And, these guys paid the price. When they came to the Peach Bowl, I ran like 12 300s when they got there, because I wanted to get the poison out. So, we carried that mentality into that game week as well, as far as conditioning was concerned. But man, I was just happy to be along for the ride, and I was very appreciative of the opportunity and very appreciative of the privilege to experience such a fantastic year in collegiate football. And I treasure that ring with that number 9 on it, and I keep it in a special place. And that year will always be special to me, of course.
Coach, prior to your arrival in those 89 and 90 seasons, we had lost games at Syracuse on a last-second field goal. The game at Pitt, who we had the dramatic win over in 91, which we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah.
We had a 3-touchdown lead up at Pitt, lost 47-42, lost something weird like 19-15 between the hedges to Georgia. And so you had all those near misses. And then to start the 91 season up at Illinois, battle back from down 38-10, lost 38-31 after the controversial penalty there, which is an entirely other story.
Yeah, that penalty was terrible.
Yeah. But just talk about the mindset of the team, after all those near misses, had another one to start the season, and then bouncing back to beat Memphis State at the time, who had just won out at the Coliseum against USC.
Well, I mean, I thought the mindset of the team was total confidence. I mean, these guys were confident that they could get it done. They believed that they could beat anybody. And didn't matter where we went or who showed up. And I'll tell you another thing is, the fans had a lot to do with that as well. When we landed, I mean, I never experienced anything like that, where you land at an airport and you can't even get through the airport because, there's so many ECU fans there. And, and they're loud, and there's like a gazillion people there. And it was like just incredible. And, I mean, I said, hey, I never want to leave this town. I mean, this is the best football town in the United States. This is unbelievable. So, and then after the Peach Bowl, a lot of the coaches weren't on the bus, but I was on the bus. I was on the plane. But when you saw people who lined the road from Kinston to Greenville, I mean, I will never forget that. It was just incredible to me. And so, it wasn't just I think the players, I think the fans played a big part in that year in relationship to how the players felt from week to week, and, how much they wanted to do it for the fans. And, we had 35,000 in there then. That place was rocking. I still remember that Pitt game. It was incredible. And so, those are, of course, some of my fondest memories were from that year. And of course, Bill Lewis always had some theme of the week. He had some T-shirt that he handed out. He gave everybody a special dime when we went to Cincinnati because this was going to be the 10th win, and he always had some kind of plan to make it special. So,
Coach, that the 91 season, I'll never forget. I'm a radio guy, and a guy that I think a lot of, and that would be another Jeff Charles. I'll tell you what, some of those, I know they're out there, but those calls on the radio he did with that Pitt game, and there's all that whole season. But Jeff is just a special human being to me, someone that I looked up to, and you and he are two people that you get to know a little bit. And but with he calling, I think the 34th year now. But I think that was like his third year. But to hear those calls on the radio, and you have obviously, I know Bubba was there. I was a freshman in college up in the mountains, so I heard it on the radio. But that Pitt game in particular, I remember hearing him, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff is obviously a genuine Pirate, and he gets very excited. Some people would say, well, why is he excited about the other team or whatever? Well, Jeff just gets excited. I mean, so, but I don't think he was excited about the other team. I mean, that's just him. That was part of the deal too. I mean, he's been a big part of East Carolina football and East Carolina athletics over the years.
So we talked about last weekend's game against South Carolina, game 4 of that season. The Pirates were 0-8 all time against the Gamecocks. Maybe had a couple of near misses, but for the most part, it had been pretty lopsided in the series, 31-20, and the ball really started to roll downhill from there.
Yeah, that was a huge win, and again, I think that confidence is born of demonstrated ability. And so I believe that our team gained more confidence with those wins. You had the Pitt win by a point, and the Syracuse win, I don't know whether it was at 23-20 or something like that. So a lot of close games that we won in the fourth quarter, and I certainly was proud of that. But, these guys didn't want to lose. I mean, it wasn't just, and I think that was a great characteristic of the team as a whole is that, they had to find a way to win. They did not want to come out of there with an L. And, sometimes coaches and players have to find a way to do that, particularly when you're at East Carolina and you're an underdog and, you got to have some overachievement. You got a chip on your shoulder and all those types of things that were prevalent back then within the program. We were an independent and trying to establish ourselves, and we should have been higher than 9th that year. But as far as the motivation of the players, I think there are a lot of things that came into play. And there's a whole list of them. And so, I just think the whole program came together that year.
Going back to that Pitt game, Dave, before we move on,
That's fine.
I remember on the We Believe video, just seeing the camera at ground level, and it was the same way, obviously, on the ESPN highlights. 36,000 fans. People were literally in the aisles, and
Right.
you had a few rows of bleachers down in the scoreboard end zone. Just an unbelievable atmosphere, and the camera was shaking because
Right.
Of how loud the stadium was. And even though the stadium seats 15,000 more people now, I've heard so many people say that the loudest game and the best atmosphere was that 91 Pitt game.
Yeah, and I really think the bowl game with NC State, that We Believe chant, was incredible as well. I mean, I was happy to be able to have my parents come to that game. My dad coached me through high school, and just to be able to have them there to experience that, and that's all they talked about was that We Believe chant, and how our players fed off of that. Hey, maybe we should bring that back. Couldn't hurt.
And no doubt about it, Coach. And I remember that's the last football game I ever played at Fulton County Stadium. Was that game? They, of course, tore it down for what would become Turner Field, which is now Georgia State's home football field. Hard to believe. How about with that atmosphere at East Carolina at that time. I try to explain to people now where I work. There are kids that are going to East Carolina now. And the thing that hurts me, Coach, we'll talk about this second, but we'll talk about later on about the later years that you were at ECU. But I feel like I'm an old man now, Coach, because I say back in my day, back in my time, we won a bunch of football games. And I know that you're hurting right now because of the program is not where you think it should be. But let me just tell you, I told him what would have been my freshman year, 11-1, and having the 2 Liberty Bowl appearances and a '96 team that should have gone to a bowl. I said, the '90s. I said, hey man, the '90s were a great time to be a ECU fan for football, and I just look back on that Peach Bowl year, for example. Some people don't understand, Coach, because it was 30 years ago, but we do have a proud tradition of football at East Carolina.
Well, there's no question about that. I mean, that's why I still live in Greenville. My family was raised here. I had a good 10 years in Chapel Hill. I really treasured that experience, but there were a lot of things that were the reasons that I wanted to come back. And my kids always thought that this was such a special place to live. And I have a house in Emerald Isle, and I really love that place. And, I love it down there. And so, I consider myself to still be a Pirate. And, the way it went down, where I was, kind of forced into retirement was tough. But at the same time, I look at this profession as kind of like the Cosa Nostra, in that, if you join the Cosa Nostra, you're part of that life, which means you're either going to get murdered or you're going to go to jail. So if you join the collegiate coaching ranks, you're probably going to get fired at some point, or you might I don't know, you may baseball bat a message board marauder and go to jail, but that might happen someday. And the way in this profession, but anyway, when I was in Carolina, Matt Maloney called me about some lockers in the locker room. I said, hey, I'm in Carolina, but I wrote a check for $5,000. I wanted to put my name on the locker at ECU. I didn't know if I was ever coming back. When I came back, I bought a locker in basketball as well. I'm proud of the fact that I invested money in the program as well. And every year I was also a Pirate Club member. When I was working there, coaching 11 bowl qualified teams in the time that I was at ECU, both times. And, I went back and looked at, and I mentioned this to you, in the 90s, we played 41 times. We played what are now Power 5 teams. And we won 26 of those games. In two years, we won 5 in 1 year. And I also started counting all the Power 5 wins that I was on the sideline for, and I counted 35. So I'm real proud of that in relationship to my time at East Carolina and being able to be part of that. I spent 25% of my adult life on ECU sideline, and that's a pretty significant amount of time. 18 years. I did take a $50,000 pay cut to come back to ECU, but there was an agreement that over time, I would make that money back up in bonuses and things like that. But I thought that Butch Davis was probably going to not be kept. But I had just signed a 2-year deal at Carolina when I made the decision to come back to East Carolina. I feel like I've invested a lot of myself in the program over the years, and that's why I still, consider myself to be a Pirate and always will. And not only that, but I cared very deeply for a lot of the young men who played, a lot of the young men who I coached. I look at that 10 years, 91 to 2001, as kind of a decade of distinction because there was so much success there. I have a lot of respect for the success that Skip Holtz had. I thought Ruff did a good job. we went to 3 bowls during the time that I came back with Ruff. And so, I have nothing but good things to say in relationship to my experience, at ECU. The last 3 years I was there, obviously, were very tough. It was tough on my health because I really hate losing. It takes me all the way back to Wednesday after you lose a game to even crack a smile. I'm not someone who recovers very fast from losing a game. When I was in college or high school, I never did either. And, it was taking a toll on me. I recently had my hip replaced. I had a lot of pain there for about 4 years. My blood pressure was getting kind of out of hand. And, I really feel like God just blessed me completely through my whole career. Every time something was about to happen, I got an opportunity to go somewhere else and keep a paycheck. I went through 7 head coaches and kept a paycheck, and I don't think many people have done that. So I don't have any regrets. My agreement coming back in with Terry Holland is that I wouldn't be, just I guess evaluated in relationship to what I was doing solely on football, but how I was running my department. And that was one of the agreements that we kind of verbally made. And then when Jeff Comfort came in, I didn't know if he would adhere to that agreement because it wasn't on paper, but he did. And, Dave Hart, I never even spoke to Dave Hart the whole time he was here. So I really don't even know what he was thinking. But it was difficult to leave the program. But at the same time, Bill Lewis always said winners get everything and losers get nothing. So, if you lose games, you don't know what's going to happen. And, so that's kind of how it went down.
Coach, I wanted to ask you real quick, if I can. I know that's a very difficult thing, but I wanted to ask you while we have you on, because it's a rumor I've heard, and you know what I'm going to ask you ahead of time. Yeah. I've already talked to you about it to make sure it's okay. But sure. I want to give you the platform here for our show, because one of the things that bothers me is I know you a little bit, and I hear people around town always saying, well, Jeff Connors and donors were the reason that Ruff got fired. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about it, because that every time I've heard that, I don't hear it a lot, but it bothers me because I know that you were not responsible for that. So I wanted to give you the opportunity on our show to talk about it.
Well, just like everybody else, Ruff told me he loved me every day. And so, I didn't have anything at all against Ruff and McNeil. In fact, I enjoyed working with Ruff. Was Ruff on board with all the things I would have liked to done with conditioning? He probably thought I was a little nuts with that. So, we didn't really do quite what I might have liked to done with conditioning. But that didn't affect me in any manner where I had some kind of vendetta against Ruff and McNeil. I mean, basically, the year that we were 5-7, I don't like losing. I recognized, and when scouts came into my office and told me they didn't think some of the seniors were playing hard, it really bothered me. And then I noticed some things from the same individuals in relationship to their work ethic. And so I brought this up to Ruff a couple times, and he said, well, JC, we'll get it fixed in the off season. And okay, fine. I didn't want to lose games. And I know when guys are not playing hard, when scouts are recognizing or noticing or asking me why a few people are not playing hard or not being as productive as they were the year before, I was concerned. There were a couple other people who had kind of gotten in a little bit of trouble here and there, and one of them I was trying to counsel with. But I saw that as being challenging. But Jeff Comfort never had any discussions with me whatsoever about who should be retained, I had no idea what Jeff Comfort was going to do. I was in Tampa, Florida when Ruff got fired, and Jeff Comfort still didn't talk to me. I think it was I don't know if it was a donor or someone on the board of trustees called me and said, well, we're going to make a change. But, we want you to know that you have a job, before I, kind of started looking for a job. If I thought Ruff wasn't going to be there, because there was no guarantees that Jeff Comfort gave me that I would have a job. So I was on Troy's show, and I think Troy asked me about team discipline. And I said, yeah, there was an issue there with discipline. But how this got kind of twisted around, where I had some kind of vendetta against Ruff and McNeil, and I tried to engineer his demise, is totally ridiculous. First of all, I never had, what strength coach has that kind of power? And secondly, I had no discussions with Jeff Comfort about Ruff and McNeil at any point. And so, did I have an issue with some seniors with regard to discipline? Yes. Am I going to voice that? Hell yes. But I'm going to voice it to the head coach or the assistant coaches. And, because I don't want to be in that situation. It's just like what I read to you in relationship to the quotes that, from Nick Saban. I mean, I still have that mentality in relationship to keeping the discipline on a team. And so that's where that came from. I was told that a couple of the coaches that came back, they were the ones who were spreading this information, whatever. I mean, like I say, I got no hard feelings toward anybody. I was part of Mo's staff. The record was 9-26. I don't want to be 9-26. I don't want to be part of 9-26. And if I had been retained, I might have had a heart attack on the way back from the Georgia State game. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't like to lose. And, I mean, it affects me in a big-time way. It affects me. It affected my family. It affected my health. And so for me to get out at that time was a blessing for me, because, I've really focused on getting my spiritual life together, and I've focused on my health. And both of those things are incredibly much better than they were. And my marriage is awesome. Just being able to spend time with my wife, which I never had an opportunity to do, and go on some vacations and so forth, has been incredible. So I got no regrets. Ruff said he loved me. I love Ruff. If he thinks that I had something to do with his demise, I mean, I'm happy to talk to him. I'm happy to talk to anybody about that, but at the same time, I know what was going down, and I know what the discussions were. And Jeff Comfort did not have a coach to bring in. So that's what I didn't understand, is like, okay, it looks like they're out there looking for somebody, but they really don't have anybody. So that's what kind of made me scratch my head, like, why is this happening? And, and I think that's why everybody questions it. So, but as an AD, I guess sometimes when you come in a program, you want to do your own deal. You want to eventually bring in your own person, someone you hire. I guess you always hear that's how it works. And so that's how it went down. But with regard to, this regime and Coach Houston, I mean, I support Coach Houston. I've always said this: Pirate life ain't no easy life. Okay, so it's never been easy. And so if you look at basically when he came in, he said he had to change the culture. Well, this is what everybody says when they come in a program: we got to change the culture. So, if you look at the definition of culture, okay, because I got it here. Culture: shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterize an institution. That's one definition. So maybe you could see a few things there that needed to be changed. I don't know. So here's another definition: an integrated pattern of human knowledge, belief, and behavior that depends upon the capacity for learning and transmitting knowledge to succeeding generations. So did we want to pass on some of the traditions somehow? And when you go back and you look at Boone and Stasovich and Pat Dye and Ed Emery and Sonny Randall and Bill Lewis and Steve Logan and Skip Holtz and Ruff and McNeil, and there are things here, there are commonalities within those coaches and within the culture and within the tradition where we might want to say, let's recapture this culture. Because what does East Carolina stand for? And what I think it stood for and still stands for is work ethic, mental toughness, physicality, expectation, team leadership, overachievement. I mean, all of these coaches might have talked about I think they probably all talked about some of these things at some point. But all the coaches, when you get into a program, the big word with me is expectation. And another big phrase is process-oriented vision and process-oriented progression of whatever your process is. So right now in the process that Coach Houston has set forth, maybe most people are happy with the process at this point. I don't know, because I don't know what his vision was or where he expected to be at this point. I know the record, I think, is 7-17 right now. He's probably not real happy with that. But he's got an opportunity this year to still win a lot of football games. And I would love to see these guys that I coached that are now seniors and still on the team be able to go to a bowl. I think they deserve to go to a bowl, and I think it would be a great experience for them. And I pray that they go to a bowl. And so, but I don't know where the vision is. I read that, okay, we fight, we compete, we never quit. And those things are awesome. Is that where you're at in the process? Maybe. I don't know. But of course, sometime you got to find a way to win. You got to find a way to win often. And, but I'm not going to be critical because I don't know anything about all the things that happen within his football team. I've been a part of many football teams with a whole lot of things happening. I was with John Bunning for 6 years. There was a lot of stuff happening that prevented John Bunning from being successful. And one of the things was his out-of-conference schedule, for instance. And I mean, he really caught on with the recruiting, I thought, the last couple of years, and Butch Davis benefited from that. But you hear a lot now about the quarterback, which I don't think it's ever fair to put it on one person. And, I know a lot about this young man because I had a chance to coach him. I think he runs very well for a big man. I think he's a really great athlete. I think he has good motor learning capacity. I think he throws the football well. But as far as, what he has to do in the scheme of things with regard to that offense, I have no clue. But I think he's a great kid. And I think the other guys that are still on the team, like Sean Bailey and Fry and Bivens and Xavier Smith and those guys, they're all great kids. They're good football players. And so I hope they get it turned around. Marshall's got a pretty tough team, but at the same time, I think that they have an opportunity now with a win this week to get this thing turned around and get and make sure that people stay on board. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm still a Pirate.
Coach, I have a couple more things for you. First, dealing with the here and now, a guy that you're obviously very familiar with is current strength and conditioning coach, Big John Williams. What are your thoughts on Big John?
I didn't know John, but John came to me when I was coming to Carolina because he was one of the assistants. He asked me to save his position, and I retained John when I went to Carolina. And I always got along very well with John. I helped him move on in his career. Anytime I could help him, I got phone calls when he was interviewing for the job with Coach Houston. I think Trip Weaver called me. And I gave him the highest recommendation I could give him. And I've done that, I think, with all I've had a lot of guys who have coached under me who have been successful. Jay Butler at Rutgers right now is making $500,000 a year, so he's doing pretty well. So I like to see these guys go out and be successful. Now, was it kind of ironic that the guy comes and takes my job? Yeah, but you can only be entertained in this business. So yeah, I don't have any negative feelings about that. It's just kind of how it goes. I mean, a guy wants to bring his own guy. He wants to bring his own guy. Now, do I think that I could have been retained in some capacity and continued to help the program? Yeah, I probably believe that. But I think that I was making, pretty good income. And I think that Dave Hart saw that the income that I was making, and one of the decisions was, maybe this guy's making maybe too much money. And so we might need that money. And I don't know, because Dave Hart never spoke to me. So I'd love to have a conversation with him. But, he left town. So, but in any event, John's a good man. He does a great job coaching, in my opinion. I have no idea what he does now. But he's been, he's at Baylor, he was at Kansas, whatever, kicked around. They had some bad luck up there in Kansas. I guess he ended up at South Carolina State. I think that was the progression. But I'm confident that he'll get the job done. I think that there's more of a level playing field now in collegiate athletics with strength and conditioning because of all the rules of the NCAA and all the limitations. And so it's kind of really hard to gain an edge now. And so you get real happy when you get one of those jobs, because with all the restrictions and things that, that are out there, you can probably keep your job if you have a winning coach that you're working for, no matter what you're doing. I mean, unless you're doing something that just makes no sense at all, you can probably hang in there if you got a coach that's winning. And as a strength coach, that's what you got to do anyway. You got to attach yourself to a winning coach, and then you can go places. Just like, the kid I coached at Bucknell, and he became my GA, and he became my assistant coach. Jay Butler attached himself to Greg Schiano, who also played at Bucknell, and it's been a great deal for him. So that's kind of how that rolls.
You talked about having the opportunity to see Coach Logan behind the scenes, so to speak, and just on game day and working his magic, so to speak, with the quarterbacks, and just a tremendous offensive mind that Coach Logan was and is. But give us a glimpse in terms of Coach Logan and him being named Bill Lewis's successor. Is that a move that you really saw coming when Coach Lewis moved on to Georgia Tech?
I really had no clue what was going to happen. When Bill left, I didn't even know if I had a job. I didn't know what was going on. And then Steve at some point told me that he was, interviewing, and he expected to possibly get the job. And because he brought me there, I was very happy staying with Steve. The first couple of years were pretty rough. I think we're 5-6. And then, of course, when we lost our quarterback, we lost Crandall, we're 2-9. And that was a tough year. And, then I remember we were at the hotel in Williamston, and I was talking to Steve, and he was a little bit down. And I was trying to talk to him. Hey, we're going to get this win today. And I think it was Southern Miss that day. And we went in and beat Southern Miss that day. And, and it was kind of a turning point, I think, for Steve. And so, but I have nothing but great things to say about Coach Logan. He took care of me. He got me raises, tried to get me raises every year. It's tough to get a raise when you got these state raises and everything. You got to find all kinds of creative ways to get raises, when you're in this state system here. And, he was always trying to help me that way. He was always there for me, no matter what. And I was extremely loyal to Steve. And, I just really appreciated the fact that he let me do what I do. And, if I said we were running 4 gassers and one of the assistant coaches, well, do we need to do that today? Well, if Jeff says we need to do it today, that's what we're doing. And, when I worked with Butch Davis, for instance, he didn't want to do any conditioning in season. He goes, well, Jeff, you'll never get fired for us losing the game in the fourth quarter. We will never condition in season because I really believe the tempo of practice will take care of the conditioning. Well, that comes from the NFL. Do I believe that? Well, I'd like to go back. We lost one bowl game by a point. We lost another bowl game by 2 points. And there were several other games that which had a good record those 4 years. We went to 3 bowls. And so if we won a Music City Bowl, that was the last, game when I left there. That was a big win. But at the same time, I'd love to go back and, implement my program and see, how we turn out with those close games that we lost. So, but, I appreciate the fact that Butch said, hey, you don't worry about conditioning. It's going to happen through the tempo of the practice. So everybody's got different ideas where that's concerned.
Coach, you brought that up about Coach Davis. I said I was done, but that kind of, made me think of another question I had, something that's been discussed a lot. Under Coach Montgomery, he had that background with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What was his philosophy on practice and then also on conditioning in season?
So can you so you're talking about Butch's?
No, I said you bringing that up about Coach Davis, it made me think, a lot of folks as far as Coach Scotty Montgomery at East Carolina, a lot was made about the way he ran practice and his background with the Pittsburgh Steelers, not believing in a whole lot of contact and so on and so forth.
Sorry, man, I lost you there for a second. So I thought we were still talking about Butch a little bit with the conditioning, but we weren't on the same page. Scotty called a half gasser a full gasser. We had some guys laying around sometimes. We might have had a few words about that sometime, but he's the head coach. Did I agree with what we were doing? I'd have to say I didn't agree, but at the same time, it's very important to me to remain loyal to the coach. And so, I didn't complain about it. If that's the way he wanted to do it, I'm the strength coach, but at the same time, he's the head coach. So, the standard was set a little bit differently, but the other thing that you got to also consider is all these deaths that have occurred over the years. You're talking about 20 guys, maybe a little bit more, who have died during conditioning, 20 players. So if you're a head coach, and then you get the trainers out there, that's going to influence you some in relationship to how hard you want things to be, particularly if somebody goes down. What happened at Maryland when a kid went down? I think they were only running 10 110s. So could someone have gone down somewhere through my career? Possibly, and I had some kids that, that fell out and weren't looking too good at times. But that's something you never want to experience. I don't even think I could coach anymore, if I had experienced something like that. So you got to find the fine line, but at the same time, conditioning, I believe, is part of the discipline as well. And so you got to pick your times, and you got to make sure that you've brought guys along progressively where they can handle what you're going to do. And also, you've got to get guys checked out in relationship to anybody who might have any kind of problem, like sickle cell, for instance. So you got to know that information.
Yeah, Coach Rick Smith, he would say, it's tough to be mentally tough when you're not in shape.
Well, conditioning, I believe that conditioning breeds mental toughness. I do believe that. I believe that mental toughness can be improved. Some people don't believe that. But, I'm from old school Western PA. Maybe my methods and thoughts are outdated. I don't know, but I'm probably never going to change. I'm too old to change, so those will be my thoughts.
Well, no doubt about it. I was telling my daughter right pre-show about how I saw some of my friends, Bubba, actually took the course. Didn't you teach a strength and conditioning, like a PE course back in the day in the 90s? I remember I had a buddy of
Well,
mine.
yeah, I didn't know that until I got here, and they said, well, part of your responsibilities for your income is you got to teach 4 phys ed classes. I'm like, well, what strength coach is teaching 4 phys ed classes? And so, yeah, for I think 7 years, I taught 4 phys ed classes. And, I had my mind all wrapped up in what I was going to do with football. And of course, we had 5,000 square feet for the same number of athletes they have now. So, we had over 400 athletes in 5,000 square feet that I had to schedule. We had to schedule a football team, and, but we got it done. But then in the morning, I have my 4 phys ed classes. So, yeah, a lot of times I'll be places and I'll see someone and they'll look at me kind of, they'll come up to me and say, hey, you taught me in phys ed. And some of them look like they're like 60 years old. And I'm like, come on, man. I didn't teach you in phys ed. I can't be that old. And, or you might run into someone who will say, hey, my husband played for ECU during the time you were there. Now, what position did he play? We played linebacker. Well, what were the years? Well, he's 94 to 98 or whatever. And then what's his name? Well, I never would recognize the name. So, no. So there were a lot of people out there who claimed to play for East Carolina that, I don't think they did. So, but I've heard that story a few times as well. So,
I have one final question for you, Coach, and that would be one of the things, the elephant in the room, of course, with a lot of programs, there's an arms race with spending a lot of money on facilities. What's your thoughts on, you've obviously been at East Carolina before a lot of this stuff is happening with the facilities. What are your thoughts on East Carolina having an indoor practice facility? Do you really think that will help our program?
Well, I think it would help immensely. And, this is something that I can tell you that during camp, one of Logan's years, there were no fields left. It was a torrential downpour every day. And we were over at some grade school field. I mean, there were no fields left for us to practice on. And we weren't getting it done. And when you're out there and now they say, well, lightning is 10 miles away, you got to clear the field. Well, you just been getting right in the tempo and momentum of practice. Maybe you're having a great practice and now you got to stop. You got to go in, you got to wait. And you might have to wait a long time, come back out an hour later and try to resume practice, go through warm up again. I mean, it's a tremendous burden, I think. So yes, an indoor facility, I believe, is necessary at East Carolina because those types of, if you're getting ready for an important game and you got a torrential downpour 2 or 3 days in a row, it's going to impact your preparation. And I think it impacted a few games with Scotty, to be honest with you. So because I remember a few games like that.
Yeah, it was one of the 2017. I remember. I think it was one of the years there. There was like 9 days, and I believe it was fall camp where it would rain so much. I remember that, and I think it was the second year of Scotty that was really bad.
The thing that I didn't agree with is when I left and went to Carolina, my plan was, okay, we're building this new weight room. Let's keep the other one. Well, they built the new weight room, and then for some reason, I guess they needed more meeting rooms for football, but we always met upstairs with football and had enough meeting rooms. They got rid of the whole weight room. So then you have one weight room for everybody, back to one weight room. So now you get, I don't know. I just could not figure that out. I mean, I can't even tell you how many weight rooms Carolina has now. We probably had 5 or 6 when I was there. But, you need more than one weight room.
Spoken like a true strength and conditioning coach, right, Coach?
Exactly.
But definitely you're right on the money on that. And hopefully one of my things on this show that people probably tired of hearing me say, but we definitely need to have the indoor practice facility. We need to have more weight rooms. whatever we have to do. I mean, we're big time, and hopefully that's one of the things I always appreciated about you. I'll say this on the show is that you have the swagger. Hope to God that we can get that swagger back that we had in the past. I've enjoyed having you on as always, and you're always welcome on our show. I told you that over the weekend. You're always welcome anytime you want. You're always welcome on this platform.
Well, my four things are accountability, work ethic, discipline, and spirit. There will always be the four that I think are necessary to be successful in any job or any athletic endeavor. And, as far as my career is concerned at ECU, it was my honor and my privilege, and I was totally blessed during the time that I was there, and I really appreciate some of the great people that I met through the years. And, that's why I'm still living in Greenville. So go Pirates.
Thank you very much, Coach. We appreciate it. And I know, Bubba, we've enjoyed having you on. We're going to have a lot of people that are just joining us from the Peach Bowl era to remember that great season. Hard to believe it's been 30 years. I guess I'm not a teenager anymore like when I started college. So not 18 years old anymore. Right, Bubba? Bubba, you were born by then, right?
Yeah. Earlier when we were talking about that 91 season, I was 10 years old, and some of those games that year, like the Pitt game, understandably, Dave, you thought I was there, but due to my Pop Warner football games, we were listening to those games on a boombox, and I was celebrating in my yard, and just when Jeff Blake dove into the end zone for that 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
By the way, we do have someone that you know from your era, a former player that has a question for you. So
okay.
On the screen. Matt Simmons asked, guys, ask Coach C about the VCR machine before the Southern Miss game.
Well, what happened was they gave me the responsibility somehow, and I gave I think 75 of these Friday night emotional talk, because Steve, of course, was the intellect, and some of the guys, they wanted to hear some. They want to get emotional. They want to get fired up a little bit. So they gave me this responsibility, which after, a while, I ran out of stuff. But anyway, I tried to be creative. I was bringing this Vietnam veteran in, riding in a van from Greenville to Williamston. He was in a wheelchair and he was disabled. And on the way there, he lit up a joint. And I said, look, dude, you're going to speak to some guys, and you're going to get me arrested here. So the guy had marijuana on him, so I made him throw it out of the van. Okay, so we get him there, we get him out, and he tells this story about sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and he had to shoot a guy in an alley or whatever it was, and he told this story, and the story was incredible, and the guys were all pumped up, and so. Logan says, when this guy's done, I'm going to bust up this VCR. He said, I want to throw this VCR. But when he threw the VCR, it didn't break. So it just bounced. So, everybody got a kick out of that. Was Logan threw the VCR, but he couldn't throw it hard enough to break it. So that was the whole deal there.
Well, appreciate Matt. He's been good to us. Great to finally meet him in person at the game on Saturday. I wish we could have gotten a win, but great times. And Coach, thank you so much. We appreciate you so much for all that you did for ECU. A lot of great wins, and definitely more to come. I'm a firm believer in that. But definitely the 90s were very special. I know when you came back as well under Ruff as well.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night, Coach. Appreciate you.
Okay, take care.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. And that's great. Great to relive in the past there with Coach. He means a lot to me and a lot of Pirate Nation, a lot of Pirate players too from his time there. We got a special, obviously, don't forget about our Pirate preview. That's going to be on Thursday night. And we'll be looking at, obviously, the big game at Marshall, game number 3. Don't give up hope on this team. I believe in this team. I believe that we can still go to a bowl game. Don't call me crazy. It's on the second game of the year. Remember, we have 10 more games until we're mathematically eliminated from that conversation. We're still going to go to a bowl. Let's have some confidence. Show your Pirate pride And Bubba, I know that we've got that big. We have the Pirate preview on Thursday night, and then Saturday we'll have our playback as well.
Yeah, on Thursday, 8:30, right here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We'll be catching up with Keith Morehouse, and obviously Keith Morehouse is the son of Gene Morehouse, who unfortunately was among the 75 back in 1970 who perished in the tragic plane crash. But we've had Keith on the show numerous times. He's a lot of fun. Obviously knows so much about that Marshall program, and this year is no different. The Herd off to a 2-0 start, 49-7 winners over Navy at Navy in week 1, and then 44-10 over North Carolina Central. And obviously they could have probably named their score against the Eagles, put up nearly 700 yards of offense, but the score didn't show you exactly how lopsided. Obviously 44-10 is not close, but it could have been much worse. So the Pirates are really going to have to play much better, especially on the offensive side, if they're going to go on the road and beat a solid Marshall team.
No question. I think they're scoring what is over 40 points a game, Bubba, averaging. And I know that, like you said, with the North Carolina Central game, but that first game over Navy, Navy is Navy's been our nemesis for a long time. We'll see how we do against them. But if that's any indication, then we've got our work cut out for us. But I believe, like I said in this program, I believe in Coach Houston. I believe in Holton Ahlers. A lot of people don't realize that he is a great quarterback. And I believe that if there's anybody that wants Holton to succeed, it's definitely me, because he's been through a lot. Think about all the teams, all the players, all the coordinators, all that stuff he's been through. I do believe in him, and I do believe in obviously the offense. I think they'll get it done, and I think they have a good shot this week. I really do. I think it's a 10-point game is my understanding for the line, but I haven't heard in the last couple of days, but we'll see how it goes. Bubba, do you have anything before we go?
No, as far as the line being at 10, that's not surprising. That's about what I would have thought.
I thought a touchdown. So.
I heard some others, and some thought that it was going to be like 6 or 7. Some thought it was going to be as much as 2 touchdowns. I really
a touchdown for Marshall. I thought 7 points, so 7-10. I mean,
and the reason I thought it would be more like 10 instead of 6 or 7 is because the way the offense has struggled. We know that, or we have seen it in spurts, SMU and other games. But Marshall does have an excellent defense. They do, however, or they did, I should say, lose a decent amount from last year's defense, which was one of the best in the nation, maybe the best statistically, giving up just in the low teens per game. But if we go up there and get the passing game going a little bit, that's the thing. The run game, definitely not where we want it to be, but the running game, all in all, has not been that bad thus far. Just there aren't but so many teams around the country that are just going to be able to line up and run the ball play after play.
Right.
You think about it there on that winning drive, the go-ahead drive when we took a 17-14 lead on Saturday, which I was hoping was going to be the winning drive.
Right. That was 7 minutes worth of offense.
Yeah,
right.
we ran the ball 5 out of 6 plays because there were 3 straight runs by Rajay, and then you had a pass, and then you had 2 straight runs by Keaton. And I was thinking, hey, we're running the football, and we're running it down after down when they know we're going to run it. So when we're getting somewhere here, we just got to get somewhere with the passing game the way we've seen it at times in the past. But I really want to see some wide receiver screens. I would love to know, we've seen quite a few running back screens, but I would love, some of those wide receiver screens that we saw so much under the air raid system with Lincoln Riley. I know I don't know if it's just not what we do now, not what we want to do, but Tyler Snead and some of the receivers we have, Josiah Hatfield, I would think that bubble screens and tunnel screens and so on would be pretty effective. But we'll see if we have something like that in the playbook and really implement it here moving forward.
Well, as Coach has told me in the past, with Coach C with the speed option, is something that I mentioned, I know in the green room with us, but the option is something that Holton Ahlers, I know, could do very well, the zone read. I'm not a quarterback. I'm not a football coach at that level. But let's definitely see what we can do with his strengths. But
and as far as those design runs, very quickly, I mean, you have the ones you mentioned as far as speed option, read plays, but other design runs, between the tackles, just faking to Keaton, and then whether it's a quarterback counter or what have you, there are different ways you can get Holton the ball. And I'm not saying I definitely don't believe that we need to be doing it like Coach Mo did and that staff, running him 20 plus times a game.
No,
I think you can run him 8 to 10 times with the majority of those being design runs and be okay with the type of body he has. It's not like he's a slender quarterback. I mean, yes, he dropped 15 pounds or so in the off season, but he's still 220 pounds or so.
230, I think 230 something. But yeah, you're right, and we'll see how it goes. But I believe for all the anti-Holton people, I understand you're frustrated. I understand he's a quarterback. I know he makes mistakes. I know that's part of the game because he's the quarterback. But I can promise you, if you put, I'll say this, Bubba, before we go, I know we're running way behind, but if you put Holton Ahlers on some of the other successful teams we've had in the past, the 90s, 2000s, whatever, Holton Ahlers would be winning 8, 9, 10 games. I firmly believe that. And it's unfortunate his legacy will be that he was building the program, but I think that's what his legacy will be, is he's building the program back to what we're used to or headed in that direction. So he can be a hero in that way. But anyway, we'll see how the Pirates do. We have of course, on Thursday night again, we'll have our Pirate preview, and Saturday we'll have our coverage after the game with our Pirate playback. We'll do that as well. All right, Bubba. I'm sorry.
I was saying about 10 or 10:30 on Saturday night after the Marshall game.
Yep, we'll do that. And I appreciate all your hard work behind the scenes, Bubba. Very much appreciate Coach Connors tonight. Until next time, you've been watching and listening to The Sports Objective. Good night, everybody. And as always, go Pirates.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Udon Cheek, assistant track and field coach at East Carolina University. You are plugged into the Sports Objective podcast. If you are a fan, you are plugged into the right place. And if you're really a fan, you will share that link. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode. Boom!